Hi, welcome back to The Main Dish. I'm Lisa.
I'm Charlie.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie Saltburn. So let's get into it.
This was an interesting movie that we decided to analyze just because simply the director for this film, Emerald Fennell, played Midge in the Barbie movie. So we thought it'd be like a nice little transition from the Barbie movie.
Yeah, because that was the episode that we did last time, so it's a nice natural transition. But that brings us right into our appetizer, where we're going to talk about the production and the director of the shoot. For our appetizer, we want to start with talking about Margot Robbie, the star of Barbie, and then now she's a co-producer of the film that we're talking about today, because she made this production company called Lucky Chap, and the whole point of Lucky Chap is to increase the production of like female-led films. And I think that it's really interesting to think about that, because at first glance, Saltburn is not a female-written film.
No, it's not overtly obvious.
But it's not like overtly feminine, because it stars two men.
Yeah, it's not overtly obvious that it is a feminist film whatsoever, but we did have to watch it for a second time to really fully understand where Emerald Fennell's inspiration, her feminist influence, comes in. In an interview with The Wrap, she did say, though, that the film is actually feminist in of itself. She says that, "I realize that being a female filmmaker is a political act. Therefore, I think that this film is extraordinarily feminist. It exists. Everything I do is feminist because that's what I live my life by."
And yeah, I think that like being a female figure in any like sort is very political, because it's such like a male-driven industry. And then for all of our years of media, it's been all driven by like the male perspective on the world, and then through a female perspective, then we can see the world through a woman's eyes. And I think that's really interesting, because we kind of discussed how this movie was kind of like a tale of the female gaze, but just told through boys.
Yeah, so taking into consideration these appetizers, and also looking back at Emerald Fennell's directing debut, Promising Young Woman, this does not have the same feel to it.
Yeah,
I think
not at all.
people were expecting it to be kind of like Promising Young Woman, but a different font of it, a different version of it, but it does not have, it's very abstract, very different. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to check it out, because some things are just not explainable about that movie without seeing it.
It's like nuanced as well in like the way that you wouldn't at first glance think that it's like a feminist film at all. So I guess that would bring us to our main dish.
Yeah, hopefully that was enough of a satiating appetizer.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I was not in the proper state to watch a movie and analyze it academically. However, I was a little bit confused on what the main message was trying to say at first, because the visuals were just so gorgeous. It was such a beautifully produced movie, and then also Jacob Elordi's on the screen the entire time.
Yeah,
so,
like stop it.
So I mean, it's a little bit difficult. I was like, what is Fennell trying to say?
All visuals and like no message, and then I'm like, oh, this is just like a trendy movie that's just like made for TikTok clips.
Definitely got a style over substance for the first time I watched it, for sure.
But then upon our second viewing,
it got a little bit deeper.
Changed up, yeah, because we noticed that like it's a story of like two women, but like told through boys. And that sounds like a stretch, but here's why. So in like the media, or like how women are filmed like through the male gaze, it's always just a woman, sexy shots of her lounging for no reason, a shot up and down her body for no reason. And that was kind of what they did to Jacob Elordi.
Especially when Oliver first gets to Saltburn, and Jacob is showing him through this like beautiful, gorgeous house, but the entire time the camera is focused on Jacob mostly.
Yeah.
And you're seeing him like add through this as an object of desire, but also as something to be viewed upon. He is like a spectacle and of himself in this movie. So oftentimes you see like, comedic movies where getting the girl or getting laid most of the time with the girl is kind of the main end goal. And as in the way of the movie, she is the end goal for this male character.
Yeah.
So it was really crazy as like a female viewer to see, the opposite.
The role reversed.
And then also, a lot of the time in horror movies, the people are having sex, and then so out of nowhere, the killer comes out. So it starts off with like these really erotic, sexually charged scenes right before the horror strikes.
Yeah.
And usually it's like, the girl's topless or something, and then she gets killed. or something like that. But it's like opposite in the way that the male is sexualized in this, and then the horror ensues.
The beginning felt like the cliche of a high school movie. Like the whole first half of the movie, it was like this high school movie, and then that's how it kind of posed Oliver as the girl. And then although Jacob was filmed as a woman, in like this positioning, Oliver was a girl and Jacob was a man. And I know that that's like a stretch, but here's why. So it like situates Oliver as like this shy, cute girl, and then Jacob is like the popular but like cool guy. So it's like very much like copying like the plot of like High School Musical or something.
Classic high school trope.
Yeah, classic high school trope. And then like there are all these parallels, like Oliver as a weird, creepy guy who's obsessed with him while he pines over the popular boy. The popular boy is like the hero, and he just happens to notice this shy, nerdy girl who no one likes for some reason. And it was all very like written for women in the way of a high school movie. Just all these like cute little scenes where he's being such a gentleman and he's like, excuse me, do you want to use my bike?
Yeah, I think this was really funny because the second time we watched it, you made a comment how you're like, oh man, Jacob Elordi's just listeing to Oliver so well.
Yeah,
like,
he was so hot in the movie because he was a listener. They had this scene, and he just kept on asking him questions about himself.
Yeah.
Like genuine questions.
And Jacob would just Felix would just let Oliver yap this entire time without letting him, like, not pausing him, not telling him to stop, and it was like, this
and
is definitely...
he was genuinely listening.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
The use of the high school trope was to put this image in our mind because we're also familiar with that trope that, Oliver's the girl and Jacob's the man. And then, but then the way that Jacob was filmed puts in our heads that he's the woman. So it's really the story of two women told by men. And then that is like a really interesting role reversal, and I feel like it brings like almost like ironic quality to like noticing how women are like portrayed in film.
But we found that when we watched the movie for the second time, we found that Oliver he was the like feminine counterpart to Felix's masculine counterpart in their relationship.
In the first half of the movie.
In the first half.
Yeah.
But then in the second half, we found that the way that he carries himself was actually, and the way that he assumes power within the household was actually a feminine way of gaining power. So
yeah, they copy another common feminine trope where he uses his sexuality and then like other like female forms of gaining power to rise socially. Yes. And it felt like they really like came out of nowhere too. Just all of a sudden he was just asking to like bang someone.
Dude, all of a sudden he just became a little freak.
But then no, it reminds me because in like feminine media, like all of a sudden the main woman in the movie is super horny. And it's like in her character, nothing led to that. Like I don't know why she's trying to do that right now. It's just, it really mirrors it.
But we're kind of talking a little bit about the literary core of the movie.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the literary references. In another interview, Emerald Fennell said she did notice she used a lot of references to books, specifically Brideshead Revisited, Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, Jude the Obscure, The Go-Between, Atonement, Line of Beauty, Rebecca, and there's probably even more in that. But the biggest, other than Midsummer Night's Dream, the biggest literary reference we found in the movie was Theseus and the Minotaur. We can see a lot of hints of that throughout the Saltburn movie. And if you're not fully aware and fully comfortable with the myth, essentially what happens is that Zeus gifts this queen in Greece a bull, and she gets impregnated by this bull, and King Minos doesn't like it, obviously, because the child is a half bull, half human, looks kind of freaky. And then eventually the king puts the bull in a labyrinth in a dungeon, and so whenever King Minos has prisoners, he sends the prisoners into the labyrinth where they can't escape to either be killed or just die within the labyrinth of the Minotaur's labyrinth. So when Jacob dies and the coroner can't find his body, and the Minotaur statue is just overlooking him, there's direct references there. But then we also see that Emerald Fennell uses Oliver as like a reference to the Minotaur.
Yeah, well, the Minotaur statue was modeled after his body, which was cool.
Yeah, yeah, and then it also is supposed to like represent, the animalistic desire. Because King Minos sacrifices all of the people to the Minotaur, it just shows the greed and the animalistic nature of the Minotaur that Oliver embodies.
And then I also thought that it kind of reminded me a lot of A Midsummer's Night's Dream, because Oliver and Felix are like a mirror to like Oberon and Puck. And Oberon is like described by Puck is jealous, which is something Oliver indicates when Oliver gets with his sister. And then Tatiana is like the mom of the movie. And then Tatiana and Oberon in the movie, they bring new lost humans into Shakespeare's play to toy with them. And that's exactly like how they find like the mom had her like sad, weird clown friend. And then Jacob keeps on bringing boys to the mansion. And then they just bring these people into their mansion to like play with them or like as objects of entertainment, so much so that it was showed in the mom's friend that she was dressed as a clown. Pretty much, or her
She had Jester
costume
ruffles
resembled
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. And then I thought that that was really cool. And like, there's a quote from the thing that they lead various mortals through the glimmering night, hand in hand with fairy grace, which is exactly what they do. Like Jacob's like so like graceful with it, and in the scene where he shows Oliver around the house and his shirt is blowing, like it feels so magical-esque. And then another mirror is that, like Oliver, who's Puck, he guides us through the play. He's the narrative person over it. And also Puck is always trying to spend every minute to impress Oberon, which is literally the plot of the movie. So that was another cool one too. And it was so interesting how she integrated the Minotaur thing and the Midsummer's Night thing and all of these references into one thing so cohesively.
Yeah, and you definitely don't get to notice them
Yeah.
because you're just initially shocked by the film. That
Yeah.
you don't get to see all the depth and all the reading and all the literary core that Emerald Fennell really captures within this film. So
Definitely.
I think it definitely has a little more substance than style once you watch it the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, don't watch it high. Oh my God. So overall, we just consumed a lot about that movie. So I'm stuffed with that main dish. But Charlie, do you have room for dessert?
Always.
Let's get
Always.
into it. So for dessert, we're going to be talking about A, the grossest scenes from the film, and B, the prettiest.
Yes, because I'm sure if you've watched the movie, when I say, oh, that scene in Saltburn, something
like-
ought to pop up in your mind. I don't know what it is, but something has to pop up in your mind. Yeah, actually, I think I have one locked in the chamber for what my grossest scene was.
Okay.
Do you have one?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
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 Should
Maybe we
say
can
it
do it
on
at the same
three?
time.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
We're
yeah.
going to say it on 3.
Okay. Okay.
We just started
Wait,
closing our eyes
Let me
and
cook. Let me
praying.
cook for a second. Let me have a reason why.
Okay, and we'll say the scene in one word.
Okay. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Grave scene.
Period.
Oh.
That was so gross.
Yeah, okay, actually, you know, I might have to change it. Now that I'm,
What?
like, thinking about it, I'm like, the bathtub scene, the bathtub scene is nasty.
Yeah, truly. I didn't
Yeah.
say that because I thought that you would say that honestly, but the bathtub scene is the grossest. And so basically I'm not going to explain it, but you can tell in that scene that like they jack the audio levels up by 10 just to make this like gross slurp sound. I physically turned my TV down and pushed my head away from the thing. I couldn't even look at it.
I mean, the fact that we had 3 of them in the chamber that could equally, like,
Yeah.
be a suitable candidate for the grossest scene in the film. Yeah. Yeah.
So
A lot of those, I was like, man, these are on for a little too long.
I know, like I felt like very like a shock value kind of thing. I'm like, I don't think this really adds that much to the movie. She's trying to go viral. And then the period scene, ew. Is that supposed to be attractive to a woman? That was so effing gnarly. How in the world was she into it? I know that she's like troubled, and not to kink shame, but that was absolutely gnarly.
Yeah, we don't kink shame here, but I think
But kink shame.
in movies in general, there's never enough, like, not never enough, but there's not a lot of scenes where, you know, women are receiving oral
Pleasure.
pleasure.
And then
So-
in the one scene that they get pleasured, so gross.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, come on.
That was disgusting, but the dessert, the cherry on top, the prettiest scenes of the movie.
And there was a
Because
lot
there
of them,
was
too.
so many. It was so pretty to look at all the time.
Yeah, when you weren't looking at pretty scenes, you were looking at vile criminal scenes. So at least there's like a nice balance there.
Yeah, it
There's
evens
not-
out. Yeah, pretty and ugly enough to just equal out a mediocre film.
Yeah, actually,
I think that the prettiest scene for me, I mentioned it in the beginning of the movie, but when they're like climbing up the hill and he's wearing the wings, that's also really pretty. And it's so sad, but like when he dies and he's wearing those wings, it's just like shot very beautifully.
I think also a very gorgeous scene was, we just talked about it previously before, but when Felix is being wheeled out on the gurney and his dad asks Duncan the curtains and the room becomes all red, and you can just hear the squeaking of the wheels of the gurney walk past, and Venetia's pouring this wine and the red's overflowing. I think that was also a bit of foreshadowing to her next eventual death, because she was just surrounded by red and blood, and then the next scene that
Oh, that's so true, actually.
we
Yeah.
see her, well, not the next scene, but we see her in a pool of blood, a pool of red, with her death. So I think that scene was like foreshadowing. So I think that was my favorite scene.
Okay, I really like the scenes in Felix's room because of the mise-en-scene of it all. I love like really like busy, like messy, cluttered scenes, and I feel like they really nailed it where it was like artistic enough, but it like looked dirty and like super lived in. And for some reason, any like scenes like that where it looks all messy and cluttered in like a realistic way, I'm really into.
No, Emerald, she's got a crazy creative vision.
Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening to our show. And I loved covering Saltburn because it was such a nuanced film with so much to talk about. And I hope that you take it for what it is, as a role reversal in media through the female gaze. But that's just our opinion. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, don't be lame. Come tune in next time.
Yeah, because there's so many different ways that you could take it. So we just took it like that one weird way.
Yeah, this is just one lens to analyze this movie. There's plenty more. But yeah, we hope you gained some insight and enjoy it, hopefully.
Please
Hopefully.
tune in next time.
Thank you.
Bye.